Hey guys, tonight we slip down gas-lit alleys and behind lace-draped curtains into a world where velvet hides danger and perfume tries and fails to cover panic. You're not in an ordinary house tonight. You're standing in a Victorian brothel somewhere between Mayfair and Misery. Soft music plays on a slightly out-of-tune piano in the parlor. Outside, horse hooves clop over cobblestone streets slick with rain. But inside, the stakes are sky high. You smell lavender oil and opium resin. You hear the soft rustle of silk skirts, whispers in low Cockney, a giggle here, a cough there. But no one talks too loudly, and certainly no one mentions the unspoken terror. Pregnancy. In a place like this, it's less miracle and more catastrophe. No maternity leave here, no baby showers, no knitted booties, just dread. One wrong night, one unlucky client, and suddenly your body isn't entirely your own anymore, and your job, your income, maybe your very survival are at risk. You feel a lump rise in your throat. This place might look like a theater of seduction, but behind the curtain, it's survival training in corsets. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from? And what time is it where you are? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You haven't eaten today, just half a cold biscuit and the dregs of yesterday's tea. You pull your shawl tighter and glance at the other girls. Some are laughing too loud. That's always a clue. They know, or they suspect. One of them's late, no monthly bleeding. She hasn't said anything, but you can see it in the way she presses her belly in the washroom like she's hoping it's just indigestion. But it never is it? In the Victorian-era, brothels were booming businesses. Some were barely disguised inns. Others, luxurious mansions run by madames in pearl earrings and polished manners. You work in one of the middling ones, cheap enough to fill quickly, but respectable enough to avoid constant police raids. Most nights, your job is routine, rehearsed. A dab of perfume, a brush through your curls, a smile you've learned to fake so well you almost believe it. But everything changes with a missed period. You weren't even taught what periods were, not properly. They don't teach that in church school or in your mother's kitchen. You found out from Molly, who was 3 years older and had been at the brothel longer. She told you to watch your linens, to track the blood, to beware the silence when there should be red. 3 days late, start praying. A week late, start packing. So you check every morning. A wad of cloth under your petticoat, folded like origami, desperate for a stain. When it comes, you exhale like you've been holding your breath for a year. When it doesn't, you don't. And then the thoughts start. Maybe it's just stress. Maybe it's a skipped cycle. Maybe it's the chill in the air, or that spoiled beef you ate, or your nerves. Victorian women were always nervous, weren't they? At least, that's what the doctor said. Female hysteria. Maybe that's what this is. Not pregnancy, just nerves. But you know better. Most brothel girls do. You've seen it happen before. One day, the pretty redhead stops joining in on the parlor sing-alongs. She gets quiet, withdrawn. Then one night, she doesn't come down at all, just disappears. The madame doesn't explain. You don't ask. Asking is dangerous. See, madames ran tight ships. Pregnancy meant loss of profit. Clients didn't pay for stretch marks or crying infants. If a girl got in trouble, she had two choices: leave or find a way to deal with it. And some of those ways, you wouldn't believe them yet, but you will. Historians still argue whether some brothels had formal policies about pregnancy or if it was all case-by-case hush-hush. Either way, the threat was real. You might be on the streets by morning, or worse, forced to stay, work longer hours, and hand over more of your earnings to cover the burden of being pregnant. Nothing comes free here, not even your own uterus. And don't think condoms saved the day. The French letters, as they called them, were expensive and often resented. Most clients refused them. Others tore them deliberately, and even the best ones, made from sheep intestines, tied off with ribbon, offered as much protection as a lace curtain in a thunderstorm. Some girls took matters into their own hands early. The second they missed a period, they'd start running up and down the stairs, hard, drink gin with castor oil, sit in hot baths so long their skin turned purple, anything to bring it on, even punch themselves in the stomach, lightly at first, then harder again. You might be thinking, that's insane. And yes, it is. But when your rent, your food, and your survival depend on being flat-bellied and flirtatious, insanity becomes strategy. And yet, strangely, there's camaraderie in the terror. The other girls? They've been there. They watch you closely. Maybe someone slips you a little envelope of herbs. "Brew this," she whispers. "Don't ask what's in it." You don't. You just nod and clutch it tight like a talisman. Sometimes a girl will confide in you. You sit with her by the fire in the laundry room, away from the madame's ears. She tells you about the first time it happened to her, how scared she was, how she told no one, how she bled for 3 days straight after taking something called black draft. She thought she was going to die, but she didn't. She worked the next night, smiled at strangers, laughed at their jokes, and hoped it would never happen again. It did, of course. The room smells like sweat and sandalwood. A client downstairs calls for more port. The music has stopped. The pianist has gone home. Upstairs, a girl sits on the edge of her bed, hands cradling a belly that might, just might, hold a future she never asked for. And below, you're already calculating how much money you have, how many nights you can fake being well, how long until the madame notices. You climb the stairs slowly, holding your breath, praying for the blood to come. Because in here, it's not just survival of the fittest, it's survival of the best liars, fastest thinkers, and boldest risk-takers. You wake up before the bells ring. It's still dark outside, the kind of thick London darkness that soaks into the curtains and makes you feel like the night never really left. You don't move yet. Just lie there, holding your breath, listening to your own heartbeat, and hoping for a sign. Some warmth between your legs, maybe. The tiniest hint that this whole thing has just been in your head. That you're not late. That it's all fine. But there's nothing. Not even a cramp. Just silence and dread. You sit up slowly, trying not to wake Elsie in the next bed. She's snoring gently, tangled in sheets that haven't been washed in a week. You don't blame her. There are worse things than filth, like fear. You pull on your robe and creep to the wash basin. Cold water, a rag. You check again. Nothing. Still nothing. 3 days late now. That's the magic number, remember? 3 days Start praying. Only you don't pray, not anymore. What would you even pray for? A miscarriage, a miracle, a time machine? You light a stub of candle and dig through the little box under your bed, the one you keep hidden under spare petticoats and your one pair of decent stockings. Inside, you've got your secret stash: 2 lemons, a tiny vial of turpentine, and an old folded scrap of paper with spidery handwriting. Grate nutmeg, boil in gin, drink warm. You've been collecting these items like charms, not because they work, most of them don't, but because it gives you the illusion of control. And when your own body has turned against you, illusion is almost enough. Victorian women turned to some wild remedies when it came to bringing on the menses. Lemons were a favorite. You slice one open now, the rind thick and bitter. The juice stings the cracks on your fingers. It smells like clean laundry, like sunshine, like the opposite of what you're feeling. You suck on it anyway. Old wives said it tightened the womb, whatever that means. You wash it down with a sip of gin, cheap, sharp, throat-burning. You imagine it scalding the inside of you, burning away whatever's growing, if only. Another method? Lead pills. You'd heard about those from a girl named Ruby who'd worked upstairs before you. She'd bought them from an alleyway chemist in Shoreditch. Swallowed them for 3 nights straight. She started vomiting blood by the 4th. Gone by the 5th. Madame said she'd gone home to her mother. You never believed it. No one ever does. Historians still argue whether some of these remedies were passed down from midwives or invented out of sheer desperation. You figure it doesn't matter. Nobody writing history was sitting on a shared mattress with lemon juice on their lips and a baby inside them they couldn't keep. You try the nutmeg next. You grate it fine, mix it with gin again. It tastes awful, dry and spicy and sharp, but it makes you dizzy, and dizziness feels like something's happening. You lie back and wait. Downstairs, the house stirs. You hear the kettle hiss, the low murmur of girls rising, the distant knock of boots on wood floors. It's starting again. Another day. You hate every second of it. In the parlor, Molly gives you a look. She knows. Her eyes narrow just a little too long on your face. You pretend not to notice and sit on the edge of the divan, hands folded neatly, like you're not hiding a secret that could ruin you. Madam appears like clockwork, checking hair, breath, posture. You smile too wide. She frowns, then moves on. The first client of the day is older, well-dressed, smells like pipe smoke and rosewater. He wants to talk first, thank God. You let him ramble about politics and horses and his idiot nephew. You nod, laugh once, touch his knee. Inside, you're a whirlwind. Is it too late to stop it? What if he notices something's off? He doesn't. They never do. By the end of the afternoon, you've tried the lemon trick twice more, and even stood on your head for 10 minutes, like Molly once swore, gets things moving. You nearly fainted, but again, illusion of control. Some of the other girls share their stories when the parlor is empty. Bess once ate 2 whole spoonfuls of Epsom salts and sat on a hot brick for an hour. Lucy swore by ground parsley soaked in milk. May just laughed and said, "Darling, you just need to drink till you fall down the stairs." You all laughed, but no one really smiled. The thing is, most of these tricks don't work. They never did. They're like raindrops against a flood, and everyone knows it. That's when someone whispers about the drops, the dangerous ones. You feel a chill, even in the warm candlelight. The drops means turpentine or oil of saving, sometimes both. Sold in tiny bottles, no label, usually wrapped in cloth. You get them from street apothecaries or from the back room of a pawn shop, or from a woman named Mrs. Finch, who lived behind the fishmonger on Crow Lane and didn't ask questions. You have one of those bottles. It clinks against your lemon in the box. You haven't dared open it yet. One girl you knew, Agnes, tried it. Took 3 drops one night. Didn't wake up till morning, shivering and soaked in sweat. The next day, she bled so heavily she couldn't stand. The mortar made her work anyway. 3 days later, she vanished. Nobody ever found her. But it did work. You hold the little vial in your palm now. It's sticky. Probably leaked at some point. It smells like paint thinner. You stare at it a long time. You don't want to be like Agnes. But you don't want to be a mother either. Not here. Not like this. So you uncork it. Just a drop, you tell yourself. Just 1, maybe 2. It burns. Later, you lie in bed, clutching your belly, waiting. Every cramp could be good news. Every hour without blood could be a death sentence. You close your eyes and breathe shallow. You don't pray, but you whisper anyway. Please, not yet. Outside, the street lamp flickers. Somewhere a dog barks, a baby cries. But not yours. Not yet. You don't sleep that night. Not properly. The bed feels too soft and too hard all at once. The blanket's too heavy. The room too quiet. Except for Elsie's breathing, deep and even, like she hasn't a single worry in the world. Or maybe she's just better at hiding it. You lie curled on your side, one hand pressed to your belly, half hoping to feel something change, a twitch, a twinge, a sign. But your body offers nothing but silence. By morning, you're shaky, not from hunger, though there's that too, but from what you drank last night. 2 drops from the bottle. It tasted like varnish, burned all the way down. Now your mouth is dry and your head's a whirlpool of dull aches and sharp pulses. Still no blood. You dress slowly, fingers fumbling at buttons. The world spins every time you move too fast. Downstairs, Molly watches you again. She knows. She always knows. She waits until Madame's out of the room, then sidles up beside you like she's asking for a light. You try the lemon, she whispers. You nod. The oil. You hesitate. She gives you a long look, then reaches into her boot and pulls out a crumpled bit of paper. Try this, she says. Pennyroyal. Your stomach knots. Pennyroyal tea. You've heard the name before, passed around in huddled whispers, murmured under stairwells, scribbled into the margins of worn Bibles. It's an herb, a mint actually, but with a dark reputation. It's what you take when you've run out of options, and you're still pretending you have some. You don't ask where she got it. You just take it, tuck it into your bodice, and try to keep your hands from shaking. Later that afternoon, you brew it. The smell is strong, sharp, earthy, and oddly sweet. It reminds you of old gardens and rainy stone paths. There's something almost comforting about it if you forget what it's supposed to do. You pour it into your chipped teacup, wait for the steam to die down, then sip. It tastes like mud. You finish it anyway. You sit in the attic room afterward, waiting. The wind whistles through the cracks in the walls. You try to read, or stitch, or nap, but mostly you listen. To your body, to the silence, to the churning fear behind your ribs. Victorian women didn't have safe options. Pennyroyal was common because It was available. You could grow it in a garden, buy it from a herb stall, even find it in women's health tonics if you knew where to look. It was said to bring on menstruation, but everyone knew what that really meant. Of course, not everyone believed it worked. Historians still argue whether pennyroyal actually caused miscarriages or just made women sick enough to wish it had. But girls in your position didn't have the luxury of waiting for the science. You had to try something. The thing about pennyroyal is this: it can work, but it can also shut down your kidneys, burn your insides, kill you slow and quiet. It's like flipping a coin. Heads, you bleed. Tails, you never wake up. You toss and turn through the night. By morning, your stomach is in knots. You curl into a ball and moan. Elsie offers you tea, but you wave her off. You don't want to explain. You don't want to speak. Your whole body is clenched, braced, waiting for pain, or worse, nothing. Then it happens. A cramp. Sharp. Low. Then another. And another. You stagger to the washroom. Pull up your skirt. Check the cloth. Blood. You sag against the wall in relief, chest heaving. You're not sure if it's relief or grief. Maybe both. Either way, you're not pregnant anymore. Or you were never pregnant to begin with. You'll never know for sure. You clean yourself up quietly. There's no one to tell, no one to confide in. No one will congratulate you. No one will cry for what you lost. You go back to your room, lie in bed, and stare at the ceiling. You should feel triumphant, but mostly you feel empty, hollowed out, like a bell no one's rung in years. The next night, you work again. Your skin's pale, your smile's stiff. But the man doesn't notice. He wants what he always wants, and you give it to him like you always do. Afterward, you sit by the fire with Molly. She watches you silently for a moment, then hands you a biscuit. "Worked then?" she asks. You nod. She takes a long sip of her tea. "Lucky," she says. "It doesn't always." And you know she's right. Pennyroyal isn't a cure. It's a coin toss, a game of chance with no winners. And even though you survived, you know you'll never feel entirely safe again. Not in this house, not in this job, not in your own body. You stare into the flames and wonder how many other girls are doing the same thing right now, waiting, bleeding, praying, hoping. You wonder how many have bottles hidden under their beds, lemon peels in their dresses, secrets stitched into the hems of their skirts. And you wonder when it will happen again, because it will happen again. You're not the first. You won't be the last. You're up early again. Habit now. Still feels like the world is made of fog and wood smoke. Your body aches, and you're sore in places you didn't even know could hurt. But you're not pregnant. That's something. You're back to square one, if square one means sore feet, half a biscuit, and a room full of girls who don't look each other in the eyes until after the second cup of tea. But now you've tasted fear, and the relief? It only lasts about a day, because you know this will come around again. And next time, what if the pennyroyal doesn't work? That's when you start asking around about her, the midwife. Not the kind who helps respectable ladies in Kensington deliver their babies with linen towels and boiled water. This is a different breed entirely. No qualifications, no papers, just whispers. She's called Nettie by some, Granny Floss by others. Lives 2 streets over, behind the butcher's yard, in a room that smells like wet feathers and old herbs. She's the one you go to when you're out of tricks and your belly keeps growing. You've never seen her, but you know the way. Everyone does. The girls pass down the route like a map to buried treasure. Only what's buried is never gold, and it's never coming back. So you borrow a shawl that hides your face, and you slip out before lunch, walking fast, head down, heart pounding. Nettie's door is crooked. The knocker's missing. You knock anyway, twice, pause, then once more. That's the rhythm. You wait, hands sweating through your gloves. She opens the door just enough to see your face. Nods. Lets you in. The room is dim, lit by 2 candles and the weakest patch of sunlight you've ever seen. The air smells of garlic, lavender, and something metallic. Maybe blood, maybe rust. You don't ask. She points to a stool. You sit. Say nothing. Late? She croaks. Her voice is dry, as if it's been unused for hours or years. You nod. How long? You tell her. She leans in close, peering at your face like it holds the answer to some riddle. Then she goes to her shelf and pulls down a jar of brown liquid. It has a string tied around the neck and no label. You drink this, she says. Tomorrow, if nothing happens, you come back. You hand over your coins. Too many, but you don't argue. She's the last line. If this doesn't work, nothing will, except something far worse. She doesn't ask for your name. You don't ask for hers. That's how this works. Back at the house, no one asks where you've been. Molly gives you a glance, but doesn't speak. That's the real kindness here. Silence. You hide the bottle in your box. That night, you drink it in 2 gulps. It tastes like syrup and battery acid. Then you wait. Your stomach roils. You break into a sweat. The room spins. You vomit twice. Then lie still for hours, listening to your own pulse thump in your ears. In the morning, there's blood. You feel both victorious and violated, because whatever was in that jar, it worked. Or maybe it just hurt you enough that your body gave up. Midwives like Nettie operated in the shadows. No licenses, no proper training. They learned from other women, from books passed hand to hand, from gut instinct and old recipes. Some helped, some harmed, some did both. Historians still argue whether these back-alley midwives were heroes or villains, desperate saviors or calculated opportunists. The truth is, they were often just as trapped as you. Nettie doesn't do what she does because she enjoys it. She does it because the law leaves no safe space for women like you. In the eyes of the Victorian medical world, your body belongs to society, to the Queen, to the Church, certainly not to you. You've read the headlines in the penny papers: infanticide trial in Southwark, backroom abortionist arrested, girl bleeds to death in Soho tenement. But those are other girls, girls who got caught, girls who didn't have friends to warn them when the inspectors came snooping, girls without a Molly. You rest for a day. Madame complains. You offer no explanation. You're paid to smile, she snaps, not sulk. You smile, just not with your eyes. Later, you sit by the fire watching the other girls play cards. One of them, Flora, rubs her stomach absent-mindedly. You catch her eye. She looks away. You wonder how far along she is, whether she'll try the lemons first or the tea, or if she's already been to see Nettie. You want to tell her something helpful, but what is there to say? Good luck. Hold on. Try not to die. Instead, you go upstairs. You lie in bed, you stare at the ceiling, and you count the days until the next time. The corset pinches again. Fourth time this week. You've loosened it by 2 notches, hoping no one notices, but Madame's eyes are sharp. Always have been. You're puffing out, she hisses under her breath as she laces you up. Keep sucking in or I'll find someone who can. You nod, even though your ribs feel like they're about to snap. One wrong breath and you'll crumple like a rag doll. But you smile, because that's what you're paid to do. Corsets aren't fashion, not for you. They're camouflage. By now, you know the game. Tight lacing buys you time. Not much, but enough. Enough to get through another week, another client, another night of pretending everything is fine. You hold yourself in, press your belly flat, keep your chin up. When you sit, you cross your legs just so. When you walk, you keep your back straight and your arms carefully in front, always hiding, always arranging. It's a stage performance, and you're both the actor and the costume. Some of the girls have tricks, extra petticoats that puff out at the hips and distract from any curve around the middle. Black sashes tied low to shift the eyeline. One girl, Bryony, used to stuff cotton under her chemise to make her bust look bigger, drawing the eye upward. She lasted until her 4th month before anyone caught on. Of course, hiding doesn't always work. Sooner or later, someone faints. Today, it's Gertie. You're all gathered in the parlor when she goes pale, sways, then drops like a broken puppet. Her corset's too tight. Everyone knows it, but no one says anything. 2 of you haul her up, fan her face, whisper for Madame. She's delicate, Madame snaps, eyes flicking over Gertie like a butcher assessing a joint of meat. Let her lie down. She'll work tomorrow. You all nod. No one asks why Gertie's been wearing shawls in July, or why she hasn't danced for the last week. Everyone knows. No one says it. You trudge upstairs that night with aching feet and aching lungs. Peel off your corset like it's a second skin made of bones. Underneath, you're bruised, blue and yellow, where the stays press hardest. But you're flat, at least on the outside. You lie down and count breaths, in, out, in, out. You imagine the air inflating you like a balloon, something that can't be tied down. And then you deflate again. Just another night. Corsets weren't just fashion statements. They were weapons, designed to compress, to shape, to hide. Victorian girls were expected to wear them from adolescence. For brothel girls, it was a uniform. Tight meant desirable. Flat meant available. There's a story one of the girls tells sometimes in a whisper when no one's around, about a girl named Ellen who laced herself so tight she miscarried without even knowing she was pregnant. Just blood, sudden and thick, all over the parlor floor. The client ran screaming. Ellen fainted and never came back. Some say she lived. Others say she died 3 days later from infection. Historians still argue whether corseting was truly lethal or just part of a broader system of bodily control. But you don't need a debate. You've seen what it does. You see it every night in the way Gertie walks now, slowly, carefully, like she's carrying something precious under her bones. You're careful, too. The parlor has mirrors on every wall, big ones, with gilt frames and clouded glass. You use them to check yourself. Turn sideways, flatten your belly. Is it obvious? Would a man notice? The irony is, Most of them wouldn't. Clients don't look at you. Not really. They see a blur of scent and satin, a caricature drawn in lipstick. They're not looking for evidence of life, just fantasy. But Madame sees everything, and she's not feeling generous lately. That night, she catches you before bed. "Stay behind," she says. The other girls scatter. You sit, hands folded, heart thudding. She circles you like a cat, eyes narrowed. "You're slower this week." You nod. "You're quieter." Another nod. "You're eating less." A pause. "I'm fine," you say. Her lips twitch, not a smile. "You better be," she says. "We don't house breeders here." That word, breeders, sticks like glue. The door closes behind her, and you feel your ribs expand a fraction. You hadn't even noticed you were holding your breath again. The truth is, she's not the only one who's noticed. Earlier, a regular asked if you'd gained weight. Laughed like it was a joke. You laughed too, said, "Must be all the biscuits." But your hand shook afterward. You think about stopping, leaving, running. But where? You've got no family, no savings, no place that would take you in without asking questions. And even if you did, what then? A laundress's job, maybe. Harder work for less money. Back-breaking, skin-bleaching, soul-crushing labor. And they'd fire you anyway if they saw a bump under your apron. Or maybe you'd sell matches on the street with the chimney boys. Sleep in a stairwell. Fade into the fog. That's the real secret of corsets. They don't just hold your body in. They hold your options out. You crawl into bed and lie there, hand over your belly, flat now. But for how long? You dream of a party once, something you imagined as a child. Women in bright gowns, corsets laced loose, laughing without fear. You wake up before dessert. No one laughs like that here. Rain tonight. Soft, slanted, polite at first, then insistent, drumming on the roof like it's trying to be let in. You sit by the window and watch the street turn into a river of lamplight and puddles. Gertie's been sent away. No explanation. Just a silence at dinner and one fewer footstep in the hallway. You pretend not to notice, but the room feels heavier now, like it's holding its breath. Madame doesn't say anything. She never does. That's how these stories end, not with a scream or a farewell, but with absence. A missing scarf on a hook, a bed left made, an empty teacup. You know what comes next. You've heard the girls whisper, "The crooked apothecary." His shop isn't really a shop, just a cramped nook behind a tobacconist in 7 Dials. You wouldn't know it's there unless someone told you, and even then you'd have to squint. No sign, no bell, just a warped green door and a curtain drawn tight. Molly draws you a map on a scrap of paper. "Ask for the tea for stomach pains," she says. "Don't use real words, and don't look scared. He hates that." You leave early the next morning, bundled in your thickest shawl, eyes cast down. The street smells like soot and stewed cabbage. A boy offers to shine your shoes. You wave him off. You knock twice. The door creaks open. A man peers out. Thin, papery, yellow-toothed. His eyes flick over you like he's measuring your soul. "Come," he says. Inside, the room is darker than it should be. Walls lined with bottles, some with faded labels, tincture of opium, camphor spirits, essence of hemlock, others blank, just colored glass and danger. You repeat the phrase, "Tea for stomach pains." He nods, disappears behind a curtain, returns with a brown bottle and a little packet of something that smells like moldy hay. You hand him your coins. Far too many. He counts them slowly. Then he slides the packet toward you. "Steep 1 spoonful," he says. "Drink hot. Lie down. No stairs after." "No stairs? That can't be good." You leave without thanking him. That night, you brew it. The water turns dark, thick as broth. The smell fills the whole attic, and not in a nice way. You choke it down, breath held, and curl into bed before it kicks in. An hour later, you're sweating through your sheets. Cramps sharp as broken glass tear through you. You clutch your belly and bite your knuckles to keep from crying out. You feel dizzy, hot, then cold. At one point, you think you hear someone singing, but it might just be the pipes. Eventually, you bleed. You don't sleep. You just lie there, soaked and shaking, wondering how close that was to being the end of you. Crooked apothecaries were everywhere in Victorian London. Official chemists were expensive and judgmental. But these back-alley pharmacists, they didn't ask, didn't judge, didn't care. They just sold whatever got you out of your problem for a price. Historians still argue whether these men were malicious or just pragmatic. Some say they were crooks, preying on desperate women. Others call them underground heroes, risking prison to provide what society refused to allow. You don't know which one yours was. All you know is it worked, you're not pregnant again, but you've lost another piece of yourself. Some sliver of innocence or trust or softness you didn't even know you still had. The next morning, Madame asks if you're well enough to work. You nod. Of course you are. You always are. One of the girls has left a biscuit on your pillow. No note, just crumbs and kindness. You eat it slowly. Downstairs, you light the lamps and wipe the mirrors and smile at the clients like you haven't just poisoned your own insides with boiled weeds and bottle glass. Molly catches your eye. She nods. You nod back. Later, one of the new girls, pretty, flushed, too loud, asks you where you get your perfume. You almost laugh. "Down by the docks," you say, "next to the butcher." She frowns, confused. You walk away before she can ask more. You hope she never has to find out. You're folding sheets in the laundry room when Annie tells you about the soap trick. "Grate it into hot water," she says, wringing out a stained petticoat. "Drink it all in one go. Tastes foul, but it gets things moving." You pause. "What kind of soap?" "Any. The yellower, the better." You both laugh, the kind of laugh that catches in your throat like wool. You're elbow deep in lye and steam, but suddenly the air smells like desperation again. You've just bled last week, and already the other girls are pushing new ideas. That's how it goes. One emergency ends. Another waits its turn. This room, the laundry, is where the real medicine cabinet is. Not the pharmacy, not the midwife's drawer. Here, among bleach buckets, starch, and stories. The steam hisses, and you and Annie keep scrubbing. The rhythm of the work drowns out the things you can't say aloud. How long it's been since your last period? Whether the cramps mean anything? If you should be worried about the tenderness in your breasts. These are questions wrapped into folded linens, exchanged like wartime codes. Laundry shifts are dreaded by the new girls, but for the rest of you, it's the one space without clients, without Madame. Just hot water, bare arms, and stories soaked in soap and sweat. Today, the talk turns to recipes. "Cinnamon with mustard seed," someone says, "and a dash of turpentine. 4 drops of iodine in gin," another adds, not looking up from her scrubbing. "If you don't throw up, it might work." "Sit in a vinegar bath," a third chimes in, then jump from the second stair. Twice. It sounds absurd, theatrical even, but no one laughs this time. Because you all know someone who's tried it, or someone who didn't survive it. There's a kind of code here. Recipes passed like heirlooms. Some are half-remembered, others delivered with the same precision as a chemist's manual. Each one starts with, "I heard," or "a girl I knew once." No names, no guarantees, just hope in teaspoons. Victorian working-class girls often couldn't read, but they remembered. Remedies passed from hand to hand, mouth to mouth, memorized like lullabies no one ever wanted to sing, because printed knowledge belonged to men, rich ones, in clean coats with clean hands. But in here, you make do with stained aprons and oral tradition. Historians still argue whether these folk recipes were grounded in botanical knowledge or just superstition. The truth is, for girls like you, there was no difference. If something made you bleed, it was a miracle. If it didn't kill you, it was luck. Annie tells the story of her sister Liza, who boiled celery seed into broth every night for a week. Said it made her cramp something fierce, didn't bleed. A week later, she couldn't stand upright. By the third day, she was gone. Taken by the fever, they said. But Annie doesn't believe it was fever. You hear the phrase often, "gone to her auntie's." Code for left the brothel. Code for no one saying why. It could mean a real aunt, or a dirty alley, or a grave in a field with no stone. You think of Gertie again, her empty bed, her missing scarf, her silence. The bell rings from upstairs, laundry breaks over. You wipe your hands on your skirt, shoulder your way through the steam, and head back to the parlor. Clients don't care if your hands are raw, or if your womb is full of poison. They want a smile, a giggle, maybe a story. You give them all three, perfectly wrapped in perfume and rouge. Later, in the quiet again, you sit at the edge of your bed and press your hand to your belly. Flat, for now. But there's always next week. One of the newer girls, Josie, leans into your doorway. "Can I ask you something?" she says. You nod. She steps inside, her eyes wide. "Do you know anything about sage? Someone said it helps." You think for a second, remembering something Annie said months ago. "Boil it," you say. "Strong, bitter as anything. Drink it twice a day." "Does it work?" You shrug. "Sometimes." She frowns. "And if it doesn't?" You pause, then reach into your box and hand her a folded note. A name, a street, the Crooked Apothecary. She looks at it like it might burn. You know that look. You wore it once. You also know she'll keep the paper. Everyone always does. You're sitting in the back garden, boots muddy, fingers stained from cutting lavender from Madame's ridiculous potpourri jars, when Nellie begins telling the story. The one about the midwife who worked from her attic flat on Whitechapel Road. She's old now, almost blind, maybe mad. But they say if you knock twice and leave a ribbon on her doorstep, she'll help you. No questions, no judgment, just one look at your eyes, your hands, your stomach. "She used to be a nurse," Nellie whispers, eyes glinting with the thrill of legend. "During the cholera." You snort. Everyone was a nurse during cholera. But there's something in Nellie's voice, half daring, half hope, that keeps you listening. You hear more about her over the next few weeks. Granny Louse, they call her. Horrible name. Supposedly used tweezers once to remove a fetus the size of a peach pit. Others say she uses a silver crochet hook, or a goose quill. No one really knows. What is known? If the teas don't work, and the jumps don't work, and the soap nearly kills you, then Granny Louse is the final option before the workhouse or the grave. One night, you walk the long way home after errands, past Whitechapel, past the rows of crooked flats and boarded shop fronts, and you see it. A tiny door, third story, with scraps of ribbon tied in a little knot on the knob, red, blue, fraying in the wind, like someone's warning you or blessing you, or maybe both. You don't knock, not yet, but you pause long enough to feel the choice settle into your bones. Girls whisper that Granny Louse was trained in France, maybe even by real doctors. Others insist she used to be one herself until she lost her license. Lost it doing what she still does now, helping girls like you. Historians still argue whether women like her were charlatans or quietly revolutionary. After all, the official midwives weren't allowed to perform procedures like that. But unofficially, in back rooms and kitchens, there were angels in aprons everywhere. 2 weeks later, a girl named Bryony disappears. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. Nellie thinks she went to Granny Louse. She was showing, she whispers one morning, over toast and weak tea, too far along for teas, or vinegar, or stairs. You wonder if she came back, if she ever will. The next day, someone leaves a small ribbon outside your door, pale yellow, tied in a careful knot. You pick it up and turn it in your hands. It smells faintly of lavender and starch, probably Nellie, or maybe Annie. A silent gesture, a message. You're not alone. You tuck it into your corset, just in case. Later that night, you clean one of the upstairs rooms and you find a bit of gauze under the bed, stained, folded like it was hidden in a rush. You flush it down the privy and say nothing. These signs are everywhere, like ghosts too shy to fully appear. But no one talks openly, not really, because if you name it, if you say miscarriage or abortion or bleeding, then it becomes too real, too dangerous. Instead, you say a turn or a scare or just it passed. Euphemisms keep you safe, keep everyone guessing, even the clients, especially the ones who think they understand. A few weeks later, you find yourself bleeding again. No cramps, no panic, just a quiet sort of relief. You thank the tea, or the soap, or maybe luck. Hard to say which. You look at the ribbon again. You don't need it yet, but you keep it in your drawer, under your comb and your mother's brooch. It feels like armor or a map. Out in the city, protests are stirring. Women marching in boots with slogans painted on petticoats. Our bodies, our rules, they shout, years ahead of their time. You hear about them from a traveling musician who says he saw 3 girls get arrested outside Parliament for carrying fake bellies under their shirts. You and Nellie laugh about it, imagining yourselves marching with them, corsets off, sleeves rolled, but the laughter doesn't quite land, because you know what it really costs. The first time you see a real miscarriage, it's by accident. You're on towel duty, lugging a heap of damp, blood-slick linens down from the 3rd-floor washroom when you hear it. A dull, low moan. Not the kind you fake for clients, or even the kind you mutter when your back seizes up. This one's deeper, like it's coming from the soles of her feet. It's Maisie, the girl barely 16, new, hair like spun milk. You'd helped lace her corset only 3 weeks ago. You push open the half-closed door and see her, curled on the floor by the clawfoot tub, legs trembling, skirt soaked in something you know isn't just bath water. She doesn't look up, just keeps whispering, "It's out, it's out, it's out." You don't see a baby. You see tissue, blood, a clot the size of your palm, and her hands clutching her stomach like she's trying to hold herself inside. You kneel beside her, steadying her shoulders, whispering nonsense, "You're okay, I've got you, it's done, it's done." But you're not okay. Neither of you are, because this wasn't planned. She didn't mean to. She drank the parsley tea like someone told her. She jumped from the chair. She said the stairs hurt her ankles, but none of it worked. Until now. Or maybe it was never going to work. Maybe her body just made the choice. No one talks about this part. Not the mess. Not the silence afterward. Not the stare that doesn't blink, or the smell of iron, or the fear that comes with realizing you've passed something you can't name and no one can bury. Historians still argue whether Victorian girls had access to real anatomical knowledge or just superstition. You know the truth. You learn by watching other girls bleed, by surviving. You help Maisie up, clean her legs with a rag, and wrap her in a robe. You hide the evidence in a coal scuttle. Later, you dump it in the Thames under moonlight, where secrets float like dead leaves. You tell Madame she had a fainting spell. She doesn't ask questions. Madame never asks. But she does reassign Maisie to light duty for a week and sends Nellie to your room with broth and laudanum. You shouldn't have seen that, Nellie says gently, setting the tray on your lap. You nod. She's still bleeding. Give it 2 days if it doesn't stop. She doesn't finish. Doesn't need to. You drink the broth. Bitter, thin, like the answers you keep giving yourself. Later, you think about your mother, about the time she locked herself in the pantry for 3 days after losing the baby. No doctor came, just a neighbor woman with rough hands and eyes that had seen too much. You were 10. You remember the sound more than the scene, the scraping of the wooden spoon against the wall over and over like she was stirring air. Loss runs in quiet circles. A week later, Maisie's back on her feet, pale but smiling. She takes 2 clients that night and winks at you from across the parlor like nothing ever happened. You envy her, not the strength, the forgetting, the ability to press it down into the folds of your dress and just keep going. Another week, and it's Josie who goes next. Not a miscarriage, not blood. She disappears. No note, no goodbye, just another bed left cold. She left with a sailor, someone says. No, went to live with her auntie. But you know better. You find her ribbon in the ashtray by the piano, burnt at one end, as if she'd meant to destroy it and then changed her mind. You keep it, fold it beside your own. Sometimes you wonder if the river remembers, if it holds all the names, all the broken bits, the forgotten tissue and burned hopes, the prayers whispered into gauze and gin bottles. Sometimes, when the night is too quiet, you hear them. Not ghosts, just girls. Still whispering, "It's out, it's out, it's out." You wake to the sound of someone retching in the hallway. Not the usual drunken kind. This is different. Dry heaves, desperate, raw. You swing your feet over the side of the bed, cold floorboards shocking your skin awake. Annie stands hunched by the wash basin, one arm bracing the wall, her nightgown soaked at the collar. She doesn't need to tell you what's happening. Her body does it for her. You hand her a cloth, whisper nothing at all, and wait until she's steady. "This one won't go," she mumbles, voice hollow. "Tried gin, pennyroyal, even the God-forsaken tallow trick." You pause. "You did what with tallow?" She gives a weak laugh. "Don't ask." But you do ask, because you've heard it before. Tallow candles melted and cooled, shaped and inserted like a plug, meant to soften the womb, or shock it, or maybe just distract you from the fact that your body keeps growing against your will. "Did it burn?" you ask softly. "Not as much as I'd hoped." That's the thing. Victorian brothel girls didn't just wait around for luck. They tried everything. Everything they heard in whispers, in back alley murmurs, from midwives with crooked fingers and beggar girls with too many siblings. Some swore by Mercury. Others swore by mustard poultices tied around the thighs. One girl once baked herself into the hearth for an hour, trying to fever herself out of pregnancy. Historians still argue whether these remedies had any medical basis or were simply acts of desperation. The answer probably is both. You help Annie sit. She's thinner than you remembered, or maybe just bent from trying to bend fate. She closes her eyes. "You ever think this place is cursed?" You don't answer. You both know the answer. Instead, you pull the blanket tighter around her and say, "We just rent the furniture." That night, Madame calls for you. An urgent guest needs something younger, someone less used. You nearly laugh, as if innocence can be measured in thread count. The man is polite, well-dressed, his mustache trimmed to perfection. He smells like bergamot and entitlement. He takes you to the edge of comfort, but not beyond it. When he's done, he hands you a folded note, something for your troubles. Inside, a prescription, not for perfume or laudanum, for quinine and savin. You raise an eyebrow. He smiles. "Don't act surprised. I know what girls need. My wife used to be a nurse." You bite your tongue. If your mouth opened now, it would pour venom. Later, you show the note to Nellie. She reads it, jaw tight. "Savin's poisonous." You nod. "So's he." She shrugs. "Might still work, though." That's the twisted thing. Even poison can feel like mercy when your options are shrinking faster than your waistline. You keep the note, tuck it behind the ribbons in your drawer. Everything goes in that drawer. Your secrets, your almosts, the scent of every near miss. A week later, Annie's bleeding. It starts slow, then faster, then everywhere. You come back from the market to find the room soaked in red. Her skirt bunched at her knees, lips pale, fingers blue. You scream for Madame. The doctor arrives, after what feels like hours. He doesn't say much, just presses a cloth to her thigh and shakes his head. "She waited too long," he mutters. You want to hit him. She didn't wait. She tried, but none of it worked. That night, you help burn her things, not because you want to, because Madame insists. No attachments, no souvenirs, just ash. You keep the ribbon. You don't tell anyone. You're getting good at that. You watch girls come and go like seasons. Some grow round and disappear. Others just bleed and keep working. You're somewhere in the middle. You feel your own body starting to shift again. Not much. Just a tightness in the chest. A nausea that comes in waves. You lie on your back and count the ceiling cracks. 8, 12, 15. One for each girl you've watched not make it. Your stomach turns, not with fear, with memory. You reach for the drawer, the ribbon, the note, the old gauze. They're all still there, waiting. The next morning, you find yourself walking toward Molly's door with a packet in your apron and a knot in your throat. Molly isn't like the others. She's older, late 30s, maybe even early 40s. She's survived things you wouldn't survive if you were given 2 lifetimes and a loaded pistol. She doesn't waste time on gossip or giggles. She chews cloves for breath and shaves her head in summer. And most importantly, she knows everything. She lets you in without a word, just a nod. You sit. She sits. The room smells like soap, old candles, and iron. "I think I'm pregnant," you say. Molly doesn't blink. She just leans back, eyes half-lidded, and says, "Think or no?" You shrug. The kind of think that comes with nausea and a skipped month. She sighs through her nose. "First?" You nod. She gets up, opens a box under the bed, pulls out a little jar with no label. The liquid inside looks like storm water, murky and mean. "Drink it with bread," she says, "on a full moon." You glance out the window. It's 3 days past full. She catches your hesitation. "Don't look at the sky like that. You'll make yourself crazy. Just eat something first, then drink, then wait." "What is it?" you ask, sniffing the bottle. She doesn't answer. You already know the answer. A mix of pennyroyal, savin, turpentine, maybe even opium resin. Possibly worse. Historians still argue whether brothel-based abortifacients were made from real herbal lore or just chemical roulette. But you know something they don't. Half the time, the ingredients mattered less than the intent. If you believed it would work, sometimes it did. You take the jar, thank her, leave before your hands start to shake. Back in your room, you stare at it for hours. It smells stronger than anything you've ever touched. The fumes make your eyes water. You toast a crust of bread, sit at the edge of your cot, breathe in, swallow. The world doesn't spin, but your stomach does. You lie flat and wait. 5 hours later, you throw up so hard, you burst a blood vessel in your eye. 3 days pass, then 4. Still nothing. You start to think the bottle was just pond water and superstition, that maybe you're the exception, the one it won't work for. Then, on the 6th day, you wake to blood, not spotting, not the polite kind, the kind that reminds you you're made of meat and fire. You curl up around it, teeth clenched, biting the edge of your sleeve just to stay quiet. It lasts 2 days, then fades, like a curtain drawn closed. You never speak of it, not even to Molly, especially not to Molly. But one night, as you pass her in the hallway, she slips a peppermint into your hand and says, "Not everything leaves a scar where people can see it." You nod. And from that day forward, you carry peppermints in your own pocket, for girls who don't know what's coming, or for those who do and can't bear to say it out loud. You start noticing things more sharply now. The ways girls clutch their bellies after clients leave, how they double their corset strings when something feels off. You see how many walk slowly down the stairs, pausing halfway like gravity might coax something loose. A new girl arrives, Effie, 16, hair too blonde to be real, a laugh too loud to last. By week 2, she's already pale and leaning. You corner her near the back stairs. "You late?" She nods. "Barely." "Want something that might help?" She hesitates. Then, "Does it hurt?" You don't lie. "Yes, but it hurts worse if you wait." She takes the peppermint. That night, you bring her the jar. The next day, she doesn't get out of bed. By nightfall, she's sweating through the sheets and whispering names you don't recognize. You sit beside her, hold her hand, and wipe her brow. She loses it just after midnight, in the chamber pot, barely more than a clot, but enough to break her. You burn the sheets. Again. You stop counting how many times this happens. There are too many names, too many versions of the same moment. Some survive, some fade, some vanish, like they were never here. Your ribbon drawer overflows. You don't know what to do with all that fabric, so you start tying them to the rafters in the attic. One for each girl, one for each choice, one for each prayer that never made it past the ceiling. Eventually, the attic looks like a graveyard of silk, and you feel lighter, like maybe you've built something sacred. Even if no one else ever sees it, you light a candle, not because the room is dark, but because something inside you needs fire. The little kind, the kind that flickers when you exhale, like it knows you're watching. The candle is cheap, rolled in wax flecked with yellow. It smells like bees and dust. You place it in the chipped saucer you stole from the dining hall and wedge it into the corner of the window, right between the rotting frame and that wobbly hinge that always squeaks when it rains. And then you whisper, not a prayer exactly, not the kind your grandmother muttered before she died, but something more transactional, the sort of thing whispered into mirrors or cracked teacups. Something like, please, just let this one be quick. Superstition isn't a luxury, it's insurance. Around you, other girls have their rituals. Lena keeps a lock of her mother's hair wrapped in flannel under her mattress. Betty draws a chalk mark under her tongue before every client. No one knows why, and she won't say. Esther, the redhead, always spits 3 times into the stove after she bleeds, every single month. These are not girls who read scripture or go to church. They believe in saints, but not the ones from stained glass. Your saint is a pocket-sized Mary with the face worn off. You rub her thumb smooth every time your stomach cramps. Some girls carry amulets, small bags of salt, hair, bits of quartz or charcoal, tied to their garters or tucked in their cleavage. And if a girl gets sick, those little charms quietly disappear, burned, buried, replaced. Historians still argue whether these practices were inherited folk traditions or improvised rituals. But honestly, does it matter? When your body is a ticking clock and your choices come down to bleeding or begging, you'll whisper to anyone who might be listening. Tonight, the whisper feels heavier. You light a second candle. Maybe you're not pregnant this time. Maybe it's just nerves or something you ate. Or maybe it's the memory of last time still echoing in your gut. You kneel. The floorboard creaks. You pray not to God, but to the saint of girls who don't want to die just yet. Your words are breathy, soft. Take it away, quietly. Please, I'll be better. I'll be smarter. You blow out the candle. 2 nights later, you bleed. Right on time. And for a moment, it feels like a miracle. But it's not always so neat. Sometimes girls don't bleed. Sometimes they wait too long, hoping for blood that never comes. Sometimes they knock on the back door of St. Eliza's Church, where the midwife nun takes confessions with gloved hands and a flask of gin. You go with Maud once, after her 3rd missed moon. She's clutching a string of bone beads, rabbit vertebrae painted with silver. You don't ask where she got them. Inside the church, the candles flicker like they're scared of what's coming. The nun, Sister Agnes, wears no habit. just a dark dress and a crucifix carved into a lump of wood. She doesn't ask questions, just gives Maud a handful of dried leaves and says, "Sleep near rosemary, drink this with milk, light no fire for 3 days. You don't know what the leaves are." You're not sure Agnes does either, but Maud does it all, and still nothing happens. 7 days later, the pain starts. First in her back, then her belly, then her bones. By morning, she's shrieking. You hold her hand. Again. This time, it doesn't work. The nun comes back, looks at her pale face, and sighs. She waited too long. You want to scream, but all you can do is watch. 3 weeks later, Maud is gone. You don't ask where. You check the attic. No ribbon. Maybe she didn't want one, or maybe someone else took her place. You start sleeping with a clover under your pillow. You turn your stockings inside out on Tuesdays. You stop looking at the moon. Other girls are trying other things. One ties thorns to her wrist. One buries bread in the garden. One pricks her finger and drops blood into her tea every morning. The brothel starts to smell of wax and wild herbs. Madame pretends not to notice. But one day, she bans candles from the bedrooms. "Fire hazard," she says. Everyone knows that's not why. Madame has her own rules, her own methods. But you remember the time she muttered something in French over a bowl of milk before pouring it out under the stairs? You remember her closing all the mirrors the day Meg passed out in the bath and never woke up. You remember her putting coins in Meg's mouth before the undertaker came. You're not sure what that means, but it meant something. So you start placing pennies on your windowsill, just in case. One night, a girl named Dot comes into your room sobbing. She's shaking. She's holding a feather and a lump of wax and says she thinks she's cursed. You let her sleep on your floor. You tuck the feather into her boot, kiss her forehead and say, "The curse only works if you believe in it." She falls asleep. You don't. And when she wakes, she's laughing. Maybe that's all it takes sometimes. A little superstition, a little kindness, a little space to be afraid and not alone. Eventually, you stop asking which of it works. The charms, the whispers, the wild herbs and bone beads. You start to think maybe all of it does, or none of it. Historians will argue, of course. They'll talk about class systems and medicinal access and the evolution of midwifery. They'll use long words and Latin roots, but they'll miss the real story, the part where you rub a thumb-worn saint and light a second candle because your heart says maybe this time it will help. You sleep better on those nights. You dream of smoke and sugar, and sometimes you wake to find the candle still burning, still listening, still holding the weight you couldn't. You wake before dawn. The city hasn't stirred yet. Fog clings to the cobbles, soft and low, like it's trying to hush the world. The gas lamps still burn a little. The horses haven't started pulling their carts of bread and sewage. For a moment, London feels delicate, but you're not here to marvel. You're headed somewhere dangerous. You button your coat tight, 3 layers deep, and tuck a flask down your corset, not for warmth, for bargaining or bravery. You're crossing the Thames, not the polite part, not Westminster Bridge with its tourists and soldiers. No, you're taking the long way, past the markets, through alleyways where even cats walk fast, toward the quieter crossing. Because someone told you, the French girls know something. They said, "You want real help? Cross the river." No one says more than that. So you go. It's a risk. Madame forbade it last week after Nora came back crying, her stockings torn and her hands shaking. She wouldn't speak for 2 days, still hasn't. But you go, because something inside you has shifted. The bridge creaks underfoot. Every step feels louder than it should. The Thames rolls below you, thick and black, smelling of fish, ash, and things no one dares name. On the south bank, the air changes. It's heavier, more foreign. The shops have French names. The women wear perfume that smells of almonds and vinegar. The brothels don't look like brothels. They look like townhouses with curtains that never move and bells that never ring. You ask for Mademoiselle Blanche. A toothless butcher points down a side street and spits. If she asks for payment first, run. You don't run. You find her. Mademoiselle Blanche lives in a building so narrow it feels like a coffin turned upright. The stairs tilt. The wallpaper peels like dried skin. But she answers the door before you knock. "You English?" she asks. You nod. "You pregnant?" Another nod. She doesn't blink, just turns and walks away, leaving the door open. You follow. Inside, it smells like mint and must. There's a bowl of crushed herbs on the table and a framed photo of someone whose face has been scratched out. Blanche pours you tea. You hesitate. She sighs. "If I wanted to hurt you, you'd already be dead." You drink. It tastes like old coins and burnt toast. 3 days, she says. Drink it before the sun rises, then stop. "What is it?" you ask. She shrugs. "Something old, from Lyon. My mother used it." You ask if it's safe. Blanche gives you a look that says, "Nothing about this is safe." You hand over your flask. She pockets it without thanks. "You bleed within a week," she says, "or you come back and we try harder." Your hands shake on the way out. By noon, you've vomited twice. Your insides feel like they're being tugged by invisible strings. That night, you don't sleep. The next morning, you bleed. Not a flood, not a pain, just a slow, reluctant trickle. But it's enough. You send a coin in an envelope with no name and no return address. A thank you, a goodbye. But you remember what Blanche said. Next time, come sooner. Some girls wait too long and bleed forever. Historians still argue whether these so-called French cures were herbal abortifacients or placebo tonics wrapped in ritual. Some swear they were ancient recipes passed down from midwives fleeing plague-ridden villages. Others call them glorified peppermint tea. But for you, it worked, or seemed to. You don't ask how. You don't ask twice. You just don't forget. Others hear of your trip. Quietly, they start crossing the bridge one by one with veils over their faces and coins in their fists. Some return, some don't. One girl comes back smiling, one comes back pale and never speaks again. Eventually, Madame notices. She doesn't stop you, but she starts charging a travel tax. 2 shillings for every girl who leaves for more than an hour. You pay it. Because sometimes a girl needs to leave London, even if only for a street's worth of difference. You begin to think of the city as a body. North of the Thames, the mind, order, fear, tea with trembling fingers. South of the Thames, the womb, hot, dark, and full of secrets. You never look at the river the same way again. Crossing becomes a rite, a ritual. The new girls hear whispers. When the time comes, you cross. Some scoff until they're late, until they feel the tug in their belly, until they dream of drowning. You make the trip 3 more times that year. Each time, the bridge feels longer. Each time, Mademoiselle Blanche looks a little older. The fourth time, she doesn't open the door. No one does. The windows are boarded. The photo frame is smashed, lying in the gutter. You stand outside for 20 minutes before walking away. Some say she was arrested. Others whisper about poisonings and dead bodies dumped in the river. You never learn the truth. But you do learn this. The river never tells you what it takes. It only rolls on, thick, silent, forgetting. Back at the brothel, the fog has returned. You pour your own tea now, your own blend of herbs, some stolen, some bought. You don't share the recipe, not because you're selfish, because if it doesn't work, you'd rather they blame the river, not you. The door opens slowly, and you're met with the smell of formaldehyde and lemon soap. You're in a doctor's office, but not the kind with diplomas and check-in desks. No, this place has oil lamps instead of light bulbs, curtains instead of charts. The wallpaper peels in pale green curls like it's trying to escape, and the man standing before you smiles with teeth that have seen too many secrets. You sit down, unsure where to put your hands. This is your last option. The tea didn't work. The powders didn't work. Even Blanche, before she disappeared, had warned you. Some things are too far along. Now it's this. Him, the devil doctor, they call him, not to his face, never out loud. But you hear it whispered behind hands, behind heavy doors, behind the back room of the butcher shop. His real name, no one knows. Maybe he was a surgeon once. Maybe he's just a man with a sharp knife and a lock on his door. He doesn't ask for your name, only how long it's been since your last blood. You whisper the number. He doesn't flinch. Too far for herbs, he says. Too early for birth, but not impossible. Then he starts boiling water. Not for tea, for metal instruments you don't recognize. Now would be the time to run. But you don't, because you can't afford to. Not anymore. He tells you to lie back. The bed isn't soft. It's wooden, padded only with a towel that smells faintly of rust. He offers you a cloth soaked in something acrid. You press it to your nose. Your thoughts start to drift, like someone's drawn the curtains inside your head. And then he begins. You hear metal click. You feel pressure, pulling, something wrong. He hums softly, tunelessly, as he works. You close your eyes. This is not happening. You think of Blanche's herbs, of the bridge, of Nora, who still doesn't speak. You think of your first day at the brothel and how Madame measured you like she was ordering fabric. You think of that moment, just a flicker, when you thought maybe, just maybe, you could keep it. But then you remember the stairs, the screams of women giving birth behind thin walls, the babies that don't cry, the girls who vanish with their stomachs still round. You open your eyes. He's done. Blood pools on the towel. He wraps it up like he's clearing a dinner plate. You'll cramp. You'll bleed. You'll wish you hadn't come. Then you'll forget. You nod. He hands you a small brown bottle. For pain. 2 drops only. You hand over the money. More than you've ever earned in a month. He doesn't count it. Just pockets it with a nod. Don't come back, he says. Not unless you have to. Historians still argue whether these procedures were truly surgical or simply reckless. Some suggest these back-alley doctors studied anatomy at war hospitals. Others believe they were little more than barbers with delusions of science. One surviving diary from a brothel girl in Whitechapel mentions a man with a metal hand who made me unpregnant. But the pages are water damaged, and no records match the description. All we know is that some girls lived and some didn't. You do, but barely. The next 3 days blur. You stay in bed. You sweat through your sheets. You cry without understanding why. The girls tiptoe around you. Madame doesn't ask. She just slips a clean towel under your pillow and adds broth to your tray. On the 5th day, you sit up. You look in the mirror. You look the same, but you know something's changed, something gone, something taken. You don't talk about it. You just clean yourself up, comb your hair, button your dress, and go back downstairs. The clients don't notice. They never do. You smile, you pour, you pretend. That night, a new girl arrives. She's 17, maybe. Her boots are too big, and her fear is too loud. You hand her a glass of water. You tell her which floorboards creak. You show her where the clean sheets are kept. And you don't say a word about the doctor, but you write something on a scrap of paper, small and stiff. Just a name, a street, and 2 words. Only if desperate. You tuck it behind the mirror frame where the light hits just right. Not for her, for the next girl, and the one after that, because secrets don't survive on whispers alone. They need somewhere to rest. That's the thing about these places. The velvet curtains hide the bloodstains. The perfume masks the panic. But the ghosts, they settle in, and they remember. You wonder if you'll become one day. If the smell of lemon soap will send some future girl running. If she'll walk these halls feeling your shadow in every corner. If she'll write her own name on a slip of paper and tuck it next to yours. You hope so, because survival is messy, and sometimes the only way to endure is to leave breadcrumbs for someone braver than you. The air feels thicker these days, not with smoke or perfume or even that ever-present dust stirred up by corsets and footsteps, but with memory, a kind of hush that wraps around the brothel like a shawl nobody admits they need. You feel it when you pass the nursery room turned storage closet, the one with the creaky door that no one uses anymore. You feel it in the way Madame pauses before sending a girl upstairs just half a second longer than she used to. And you feel it most when you look in the mirror and see not just your face, but all the faces that came before it. One of them is yours, but not this version. No, the girl staring back is younger, rounder-faced, more naive. She believed the rumors were just stories told to scare her. She laughed when the older girls warned her not to fall in love. She doesn't laugh anymore. You've seen too much, heard too many sobs muffled behind embroidered handkerchiefs, folded too many little blankets with nobody to wrap them around. Tonight, you clean the sitting room alone. The velvet cushions, the chipped teacups, the brass lamps with weak wicks. Everything is quiet except for the steady tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. It sounds like a heartbeat, slow and final. You kneel to pick up a dropped hairpin and find something else. A wooden rattle, tucked under the settee, not new, not from any child here now. There are no children here now. You turn it over in your hand. It's cracked, the paint faded, but still, someone once held this, small fingers tight around the handle. You put it in your apron pocket. Some things shouldn't be discarded. There was a time when babies born in brothels had names, at least for a while. Sometimes they were raised there tucked away with a nanny on the third floor. Other times, they were given up to churches or orphanages, or the more desperate alternative, left in the care of baby farmers, those grim women who took coins for silence and offered a future wrapped in cold neglect. Historians still argue whether baby farming was more rescue or ransom. Some point to the few success stories, children adopted into better lives. Others cite ledgers, thin and cruel, where infants were listed beside chickens and kettles, then crossed out like debts repaid. But you've seen the aftermath too closely to pretend. You remember Lizzie, who gave birth in secret and wrapped the child in towels, whispering songs she'd half forgotten from her own mother. The next morning, the towels were gone, and so was Lizzie. Madame said she'd left for the country. No one ever saw her again. It's not all despair, not always. There are still the nights when someone tucks a rose behind your ear, when the music floats from the parlor and almost sounds sweet, when you laugh, genuinely, helplessly, because someone tripped over his own shoes and blamed it on you. But even in those moments, the ghosts are there, not malicious, just watching, lingering. Maybe that's why you light candles every week now. Not for prayer, though sometimes it feels like one, but for remembrance, for Nora, who walked into the river one dawn and never returned, for May, who left a bundle on the convent's doorstep and never spoke of it again, for Blanche, who never came back from the alley doctor, for the version of you that didn't make it out. Because in a place like this, survival isn't just breath. It's endurance. It's memory. It's the quiet agreement between women that even if the world forgets you, they won't. And yet, you think about leaving, not because of scandal or pregnancy, or the looming fear of what happens if your looks begin to fade, but because you've begun to dream about windows without bars, about fields, about stillness, about your own bed with sheets that only you touch, and about a cradle not empty, not secret, just quiet. But you don't go, not yet. There's still someone new tonight. She arrives with a suitcase too big for her hands and eyes too wide for her face. She says she's 18. She might be 15. You take her coat. You pour her tea. You show her the staircase with the third step that creaks. You sit beside her on the bed and explain how to use the perfumed powder. Just a pinch, no more. You pause before leaving, and from your apron you pull that old rattle. You press it into her hand. She looks confused, almost embarrassed. You don't explain. You just say, "Keep it, in case you ever need to remember something small." And then you leave her there. The night stretches long, as always. The men arrive with cigars and coins, laughter and liquor. But you watch from the landing, quieter now. Not bitter, just full. You've carried 100 lives in your arms, some briefly, some only imagined. And tonight, you light one more candle. This one's for the future, whatever it may be. And now, let's take a breath together. Let the images soften, like the flame of a candle slowly dimming, flickering once, twice, and then gently going out. The streets outside grow quieter, the footsteps of the past fading into the hush of the present. The velvet curtains are closed now. The perfume has settled. The whispers have stopped. But the stories, they linger. You've walked the halls of gaslight and grief. You've seen the powder tins, the tea leaves, the folded handkerchiefs, and half-hummed lullabies. You've stood in the shadow of choices no one should have to make, and yet somehow found the strength to face them anyway. So breathe in and out. Let the weight of that world fall gently from your shoulders. There's no need to carry it tonight. The girls are resting now, their silhouettes barely visible in candlelight, their dreams carrying them far from London's soot and sorrow. You're there with them now, floating above rooftops, drifting into softness, into sleep. You've earned the rest, and as you settle deeper into the quiet, remember, even in the darkest corners of history, there are always flickers of warmth, of sisterhood, of survival. So sleep well, traveler. You made it through, and tomorrow we'll journey somewhere new. End of script. Sweet dreams.